Hey, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from Street Scores, and man, I'm so excited to talk about everything that happened in the final joint practice with the Ravens. I'm a little sad because this is the end of joint practices. We had two practices yesterday and today, August 15th and the 16th, and now that's it. Hopefully we get some more next year. Hopefully we keep this going. I would prefer if we just go ahead and keep it going with the Ravens. They're a really good team, offense, defense. They have a mobile quarterback, which presents a myriad of problems that most other teams can't give you in a joint practice. Also, they're very close. Our players don't even have to get on a plane to go practice against them and things like that. So I hope we keep that going. But either way, this was a very fun 2 days. More fighting today as well, and some people are even saying that it may have been even a little bit chippier today than it was yesterday. But overall, a great practice, man. Probably the biggest takeaway that you could take from this entire practice today and just the joint practices overall the past 2 days is just that the Commanders look really good. You have to leave these joint practices feeling good about yourselves if you're the Commanders players and coaches, for sure, for sure. And we have so many things to talk about because today we were DBU, PBU. Pass breakups left and right the whole time. Washington defense dominated completely. Lamar Jackson, we'll talk about his stats after the intro, but they were not good. Sam Howell outperformed Lamar Jackson today. Speaking of Sam Howell, Ron Rivera is refusing to name a starting QB. Is this worth even talking about? Is it that serious, or is this weird and confusing? Also, is Andre Jones the steal of the 2023 NFL draft? Is he the next 7th round gem like a Cameron Curl? We have that and so much to talk about, man. Again, the DBUs, man, they're going to be really fun to talk about when we get to the end of this video. But before we dive into all of that, make sure you stiff arm the like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and make sure you stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification immediately and each and every time I release an informative and opinion video just like this one. Of course, I'm uploading all of the practice clips every time that we practice. These Ravens joint practice clips have been really fun. Shouts out to the Ravens for live streaming. I don't know why the Commanders didn't, but I'm very thankful that the Ravens at least did. So we got to get a lot more access to see more of a practice than we typically do for the Commanders. Commanders don't really show nothing. Only things we get are fans uploading clips or reporters uploading clips and things like that. The Commanders themselves don't upload clips, but the Ravens did their whole thing. So shouts out to the Ravens. Their facilities were really nice. They were very hospitable. Gotta shout them out. And of course, shouts out to all of y'all. Again, stay tuned for all of the content, daily updates on everything going on, breaking news, still working on rookie film sessions, and I will be live streaming that upcoming preseason game against the Ravens Monday night. So make sure you pull up for that and stay tuned. Without further ado, let's get it.
You tell your family you can be a commander.
All right, so first of all, practice started at 9:30 today. I think yesterday it started at 10:30, and it went for 2 hours, and the temperatures were in the mid to upper 70s. Hey, man, shouts out to y'all, because we're still deep into the 80s, low 90s down here in Atlanta. So, hey, man, shouts out to y'all. I'm very happy about that. Like I say, every time I mention the weather in these video breakdowns, these training camp breakdowns, the reason I'm bringing it up is because I'm just really happy that the things are starting to cool down up there at least, and that our players are practicing in more hospitable weather and not out there dealing with potential heat strokes, exhaustion, and stuff like that, because the sun eats at you. I mean, the same amount of distance that you would run in 75-degree weather and 90-degree weather would be two completely different distances. Or at the very least, if you ran the same distance in those two different temperatures, you would be far more tired in that 90-degree weather. So again, I just feel like the practice is able to go by so much smoother. Everybody's at the top of their game. There's no excuses about it's too hot and we don't necessarily perform well. No, this is even level playing field. Really nice weather today, especially. I believe today's weather was even cooler than yesterday's weather, so this was a great combination of elements to allow us to be at our best. Both teams too. That's what I want. I don't want the Commanders just to go out there and be on their A game and the Ravens out there on their C game. I want everybody on their A game so we can truly know where we stand as far as a measuring stick and making our players better. Going against better competition makes our players better. So man, shouts out to the weather, man. Yes sir. Also, I like the fact that Chase Young and Odell Beckham Jr. clearly have some sort of friendship going on, because before like practices started to go down and everybody started to split up and go their separate ways, Ravens on one side, Commanders on their side, Chase Young made sure he went to go dap up Odell Beckham Jr. and J.K. Dobbins before practice started, even though Chase Young didn't really participate in practice, any team drills, but that was pretty cool. And Chase Young and Odell Beckham Jr. came out of the tunnel at the same time to enter the field, so that's a cool friendship right there. It doesn't really matter that much, but I just felt like I knew it. I felt like I should include it in the video for those of y'all who may care about it. Also, a Ravens reporter said the Ravens Commanders joint practices have wrapped up. The second hour was much more chill than the first. Lamar Jackson and the first team offense did not have a good morning. He said he had Lamar Jackson at 8 for 19 on 11 on 11s and 3 for 7 and 7 on 7s. Drops and pass breakups were included, but also just a lot of misses from Lamar Jackson as well. And I just feel like at the end of the day, before we start to dive into anything, like I said in the intro, based on how we looked in these joint practices, we look like a playoff contender. If you consider the Ravens a playoff contender, the Commanders, if anything, matched them dead even in most places, if not maybe even outperformed them, especially today. Yesterday was more even than today. Today the Commanders just look like the better team overall. So if you feel like the Ravens are a really good team, then you gotta love where you stack up as far as Commanders fans, players, coaches, front office, Josh Harris, all of those guys. You have to feel really good leaving this joint practice, and that level of confidence could go very far entering the regular season. I'm really excited. All of this hate that we're getting from national media thinking that Sam Howell's the worst quarterback in the NFL, a lot of people like Adam Rank thinking we're only going to win 3-4 games, all of that stuff, we're going to quiet that. We're going to have a lot of people looking really crazy, and I hope that everybody keeps their receipts, man. Now moving on to the injuries, before we talk about the fights, before we start to dive into all of the position groups, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, you know how we do every position group, the entire video all the way down. Of course, Chase Young did not participate in team drills today, only individuals, and he looked pretty good out there, to be completely honest. I thought he looked straight, like in the individual drills. Here's a video right here. I thought he looked pretty good, and he could have gone out there, but I think they're just showing an abundance of caution for everybody. Like I keep saying, I feel like most of our injuries, if not all of them, as long as people aren't on IR, all of the guys that are like sitting out of practice, only doing individuals and stuff like that, if we had to play a game that really mattered today, I feel like Chase Young, Logan Thomas, all of these guys would have played in that game, maybe even for Darian Mathis. But here's the clip that I'm talking about with Chase Young. See, man, he looks smooth to me. And then Logan Thomas, dealing with his calf injury, was at practice but wasn't in pads. And Ron Rivera even spoke on it. He said, quote, "This is a real good step for Logan Thomas. And you know he's been running. You guys haven't seen him, but he's been running in the Ultra G and underwater treadmill. Just taking some of the weight off of it right now. So he's trying to get his conditioning back before we get him out there," unquote. So basically, again, like I said, if we had to play a game, Logan Thomas would play right now. But they're just being overly cautious. And basically, they're just trying to keep weight off of that leg, but he's basically running on the treadmill and stuff like that, and they just want to make sure he's well conditioned before he ends up getting hurt out there because of his lack of conditioning and not necessarily even his calf injury. Also, in really good news, we had Benjamin St. Juste back out there today in like full pads, participating in everything, individuals, team drills, all of that, so he's good to go, thank goodness. And then also, before we move on, Sadiq Charles participated in the practice initially, but then they pulled him from team drills. Apparently he was having some issues with his calf again, and it's just like, I mean, is anybody surprised at all? I'm not, me personally, at all. And then just on the Ravens side, man, they had a lot of injuries. I know a lot of Commanders fans are probably panicking about the injuries we have, but we're not as bad as them. First of all, most notably, Marlon Humphrey had to get surgery, and they're not even exactly sure when he'll be back. He may even miss some regular season games type of stuff. But also, as far as players that aren't on the PUP list, aren't on IR or the NFI list or anything like that, guys that are on the 53-man roster and should be healthy enough to play, they had a lot of players that didn't participate in practice today. Quarterback Tyler Huntley, wide receivers Laquan Treadwell, wide receiver Rashad Bates, tight end Isaiah Likely, tackle Ronnie Stanley, cornerback Jalen Armour Davis, Pepe Williams, Rocky Sin, Arthur Marlett, Jaquan Amos, and of course, like I already said, Marlon Humphrey. And it's crazy too because Laquan Treadwell and Marlon Humphrey just were at practice yesterday, participating in team drills, individuals, all of that type of stuff. So I don't even exactly know when Marlon Humphrey got hurt, but that's really interesting. And John Harbaugh spoke on the Marlon Humphrey situation. He said it shouldn't be a long-term thing, but we'll see. And then as far as wide receiver Rashad Bateman, who's just returned from injury, like literally just came off of the PUP list last week, John Harbaugh said that he's good to go, and they probably just wanted to rest him just in case, kind of like a Chase Young, Logan Thomas situation. So again, Commanders fans are starting to panic about our injuries, but again, we're still pretty healthy compared to most NFL teams. I mean, period. We should be very thankful for where we are health-wise right now. I'm not gonna lie. And then moving on, the fights today weren't covered as much. Like, first of all, I wasn't able to see any clips of them. I have like a picture, but that's it. Like, that's the only thing I have of proof of any fights. Everything else is just word of mouth and what people are saying from the practice, like reporters and fans like that. So all we know is one fight broke out at some point during the early portion of the Ravens Commanders practice during offensive line and defensive line one-on-one drills. Of course, Eric Bieniemy wasn't playing with them, lit into him, and that hushed everything down. Again, Eric Bieniemy, I'm telling y'all, the legend lives on. He moves like a mob boss. As soon as everybody's all rowdy and stuff, Eric Bieniemy come up, everybody calms down. It's really crazy. John Keim said a couple of issues today, but nothing got out of hand. Washington offensive line wasn't happy when Travis Jones took Nolan Laufenberg to the ground in one-on-ones with a little extra love at the end. But nothing like when Washington practiced with Houston or the Jets back in the day. So they felt like, some people are saying it was more shenanigans today. Some people felt like that it wasn't as much. I don't know if some people just didn't see certain things, because a Ravens reporter said practice isn't even an hour old and we already have maybe our worst fight of the joint practices. Looked like things popped off during this one-on-one drills with the offensive line, defensive line, like I talked about earlier. And Justin Madubuike ended up fighting tackle Alex Akambulu, and it ended with Odafe Owe's helmet being torn off, or he took it off himself or whatever. And it was like a few minutes of a scuffle kind of, but a lot of people are saying it was only minor. And then there was apparently another situation where linebacker Patrick Queen and Commanders running back Brian Robinson got into a fight, both swinging at each other, and then the sidelines cleared and everything, and then it was broken up pretty quickly. But I just think that's funny too, because that's like a whole LSU versus Alabama beef right there, which is pretty cool. Also really interesting, LSU, don't be surprised that they're better than Alabama this year. Hey man, do not be surprised. I'm not necessarily making a prediction, but do not be surprised, man. I mean, the Alabama had arguably the best quarterback in college football last year, at least one of the best. And then, I mean, first overall pick, and then arguably had the best defensive player in football last year, and they still didn't win the championship. Now, losing those guys, are they going to be that good from top to bottom while LSU was getting way better? We'll see, man. I don't even exactly know who their starting quarterback this is. I know I'm going on a tangent, but hey, man, don't sleep on LSU this year. I'm warning you now as a Georgia Bulldog fan. Now, moving on, joint practice-wise, Roquan Smith said he relished the opportunity to hit people on another team during these two joint practices with the Commanders. Also like being able to go against opponents who don't know your moves, and that's big, man. I'm telling you, just like we talked about with Deron Payne, being able to go against somebody that doesn't know your moves, as far as like you got to try new things to improve. Roquan Smith is basically making the same point, but on the side that it's really cool that like you're not going against somebody that knows exactly what to do to stop you. So now you're like a little bit more confident, you're gaining some momentum because your moves that typically haven't worked against the people you practice against every day are now suddenly working again, because the people you're going against aren't necessarily used to that and ready for it. So I think it's both sides that, again, these joint practices are just a big win-win on all fronts, man. I'm telling you. Also, the Ravens broadcast just seemed to refuse to show any Washington's first team offense versus the Ravens first team defense. Like, they just completely avoid. That's why when I'm uploading these clips, you barely see any like Sam Howell plays. You get most of them from the Washington Commanders afterwards in clips, like the little slow motion clips with like background music to it. That's about all you're getting. I don't know what that is behind that. They love to show Lamar Jackson or any of the Ravens offense out there, but as soon as the Ravens defense was out there, their live streams just completely stopped caring. But that's not on them. It's up to the Commanders to live stream it for us. So you can't even be mad at the Ravens. If anything, look at the Commanders like, why are y'all not live streaming it? So again, I want to shout out the Ravens for even live streaming what they did, man. I'll take what we can get. Now moving on to the quarterbacks, Rivera declined to officially name Sam Howell as the starter for the season. However, they'll meet over the next 2 days, and that could lead to a formal announcement Friday, maybe. Hal hasn't done anything to lose the job, but these 2 days were key. Go back, analyze, discuss, and proceed. Those are the tweets and the comments from John Com. And I just want to dive into the situation because I think it's really weird, really not very interesting though. Not something that we just need to have a whole debate topic on the entire internet, Twitter, or even in the comment section here. Really about, if you want to give your opinions on that, definitely feel free to do so. And when I'm not busy, I'm trying to read and reply to every comment that I can. But since we're here, I mean, there's one side of it where like naming the starting quarterback doesn't really do much. Like, what is the real significance behind it? Because like it's different for Tampa Bay right now. They have an honest QB competition between Kyle Trask and Baker Mayfield, who are splitting first team reps. Right now, Sam Howell is getting all of the first team reps. So it's not like Sam Howell is missing out on precious reps, valuable reps, because we haven't announced the starting QB right now. He's getting all of them. So announcing that he's the starting QB won't affect how he practices at all. But at the same time, it's just like, what are we waiting on? Are we overthinking things? Is this just like a, I want control of the situation, I don't want the media talking about it? Like, I just think it's really weird. And at the same time, with the fact that Sam Howell's getting every first team rep, and you've been calling him QB1 way back since people felt like we should have drafted or brought in another quarterback through free agency, and then now suddenly he's not QB1 yet, and if anything, he's only been better and shown you more reasons why he should be. So I just think it's really weird politics. But again, at the end of the day, it's not something worth people like really spazzing over, going crazy over the internet. Really not that much of a discussion topic, but with the news out there, I just want to make sure I present to y'all any little information and opinions that I get. And as of right now, my dog is trying to get my attention. Brody, you're not normally this aggressive. What is going on? Are you good? Man, I don't know if I'm gonna edit this out or not. But either way, Sam Howell is completely unbothered, unlike me. I'm completely bothered right now by the dog. He said, quote, "Title doesn't change anything from a work standpoint. I try to be the best player I can every single day," unquote. So at the end of the day, as long as Sam Howell doesn't care, I don't care, to be completely honest. If it doesn't affect him in any way, let's keep it moving. It's no real news and nothing to really talk about. Also, Rivera said that he would speak with Eric Bieniemy and QB coach Tavita Pritchard once the team returns home back in Maryland, Virginia. Well, technically Virginia. I'd imagine we hear the obvious news later than post-game Monday, if not by Friday's practice. So we should know, it seems like at the very latest, after the preseason game against the Ravens. I'm thinking, that's what I'm assuming. That's what some reporters are assuming, but you never know. But now moving on to what's important about Sam Howell. And today, he had a great day, unlike Lamar Jackson. Again, like I said earlier, Lamar Jackson did not have a good day at all. He went 8 for 19 and 11 on 11s, 3 for 7 and 7 on 7s. So according to a Ravens reporter that has absolutely no reason to downplay Lamar Jackson at all, from his calculations, Lamar Jackson went 11 of 26 today. Meanwhile, Sam Howell had a great day today. And so I'm thinking, is it because the Commanders defense is just way better than the Ravens offense? Or is Sam Howell better, or at the very least just flat out just came better prepared for today than Lamar Jackson did? Maybe it's a bit of both. I'm leaning more towards the Commanders defense is just better than the Ravens defense, but do not sleep on Sam Howell. I really do feel like, based off of the little bit that I've seen so far, one preseason game, a couple of joint practices, and a few training camp practices, that Sam Howell has a lot of the tools to be a franchise quarterback for us. At the very least, like I said, his floor is a professional quarterback, which is more than I can say for a lot of the quarterbacks we've had over the past few years. But does he look like a franchise quarterback? I'm growing more and more optimistic about that as we keep going. I mean, at one point, Sam Howell was going crazy during 11 on 11s, and there were 2 occasions where he had a lot of pressure on him. He maneuvered outside of the pocket and made sure he threw a completion. One was a sidearm throw to De'Ami Brown, which was beautiful, and the second one, he set his feet quickly after moving to hit John Bates. And it just seems like he can do both, whether he wants to do it completely on the move without setting his feet and just doing like a quick sidearm, or if he's running and then hurry up, set his feet, and then deliver a pass. Here's the sidearm one on the move to De'Ami Brown if you wanted to see it. I'm telling you, man, Sam Howell's the truth. I'm not saying he's better than Lamar Jackson, but he definitely outplayed him in day 2 of joint practices with the Ravens, and that's a pure objective fact today. Then moving on to the running backs, Brian Robinson. A lot of the running backs were going against a lot of the Ravens defenders in one-on-one pass rush drills, and they looked pretty good. And then also at one point, Brian Robinson had to run a route against them, and he won the route. Here's the clip right here.
All right, I'm done with it.
I'm telling you, man, Brian Robinson evolving as a pass catcher, a route runner, like a deadly pass threat, and also improving as a run blocker, a pass blocker, all of that whenever he's asked to do so is going to allow him to be on the field any down. And also, it's not going to tell a defense what we're doing, because originally, with Brian Robinson being primarily the first and second down back, Antonio Gibson being the third down back, you know, Brian Robinson on the field, most teams are going to assume that we're running the ball. They're going to stack the box, and it's going to be more difficult for Brian Robinson to do what he does best, and that's run the ball in between the tackles. But now that he's evolving as a pass catcher, as a pass blocker as well, that's huge. Antonio Gibson, the same thing, and also learning how to run the ball better in between the tackles. I mean, you saw him run a Ravens defender over and put him on his back yesterday, and Antonio Gibson just kept running, and that was one of 2 broken tackles on that one play. Now that they're evolving to become completely well-rounded running backs, them being on the field doesn't automatically signify what our offense is trying to do. A defense has to stay balanced. You have to worry about us running the ball, passing the ball, or whatever, no matter which of those 2 running backs are on the field. And that is beautiful, because that's going to make things easier for Sam Howell and Eric Bieniemy to run the offense. I'm so excited. Also, Brian Robinson had a really good run at one point against the Ravens, which was started in by the Alex Armah block, which was really the catalyst for the play. Shouts out to Alex Armah. Anytime I can mention him, I'll mention him because he's from Atlanta, so shouts out to him. He had a really good block against Odafe Owe, who's been actually having a really good couple of days of joint practice against us. He has like 2 or maybe even 3 like would have been sacks in joint practice yesterday alone. So for Alex Armah as a fullback / tight end to be able to pick him up was really good, especially for it to result in a really big run for Brian Robinson. Also, Jonathan Williams had some really good runs today as well. So that running back depth is very serious right now, even though I'm rooting for Jared Patterson to get one of those last spots. And we already know that Chris Rodriguez gets busy just off of how he looked against the Browns. He seems like one of those guys that just plays better than he practices. So our wide receiver depth, don't sleep on it. Then wide receiver, arguably the best wide receiver group in the entire NFL, are arguably our best position group on our team, and it showed today, man. It's shown the entire joint practices. These guys are completely uncoverable, and I love the fact that Terry McLaurin, when he got his chance, he had his press conference after practice yesterday, spoke highly of Sam Howell, and then when it was Sam Howell's turn for his press conference today, he spoke highly of Terry McLaurin. He said, quote, "It's just so much fun to have a guy that I feel no matter what, whoever's covering him, he's going to get open," unquote. And I absolutely love that quote, because it's very true. First of all, Terry McLaurin had a great day today. Jahan Dotson had a great day today. He's always open. I mean, for an example, here's this clip right here where he's just wide open, and that, I mean, I could complete that pass. Man, our receiving group is so serious, dog. It went from being one of our weaknesses to one of our strengths. I mean, even the depth chart. Shouts out to Ben Standig for putting this clip together that I'm about to show y'all, but he brought up a great point that really the 5th and 6th wide receiver spots are more than likely going to come from this group of Marcus Kemp, Kazmir Allen, Mitchell Tinsley, Byron Pringle, and Dax Milne. And here are those guys performing in one-on-ones today in practice as well. Here's the clip again. Shouts out to Ben Standig for this. And if you notice in that first clip, that is Marcus Kemp, who had the one-on-one rep that broke the DB back and like had him breakdancing and all of that. So, man, Marcus Kemp, strong competition for that spot, man. I'm telling you, because Don't sleep. Marcus Kemp is one of those guys that has so many tools to his tool belt because he's a special teams guy. He's the guy that, again, had 3 huge blocks on that Kadarius Toney return for the Chiefs against the Eagles in that Super Bowl that allowed them to basically win the game and put it away. He also is one of the very few receivers on this entire roster that's taller than 6'1". Him and Bryson Tremaine, outside of the tight ends, are our only receiving options that are taller than 6'1", and both of those guys are like 6'5", 6'6". So he's bringing size. He has the special teams. And then also him, Byron Pringle, Derek Gore, maybe I'm missing somebody else. Those are the only guys that are ex-Chiefs players that are here under Eric Bieniemy, our new offensive coordinator. So that's also a slight advantage that he may have. And then he's out here making plays like this. So this competition is crazy. We are crazy deep at receiver this offseason. I can't believe it. Like, where were these guys in 2020? I would take every guy that I just listed over Dontrell Inman easily. Like, we had Dontrell Inman out there playing in regular season games while we're out here worried about between Marcus Kemp, Kazmir Allen, Mitchell Tinsley, Byron Pringle, and Dax Milne, who we're going to end up keeping on the practice squad, or maybe even end up cutting. Like, this is crazy how deep this receiver group is right now. Receiver group, DB group, defensive line, it's absolutely insane and unfair right now. I mean, Mitchell Tinsley making catch after catch. He did it in a preseason game. He was doing it in training camp practices before the preseason game, and then the second day of the joint practices with the Ravens. Look at this catch he made. Bad ball by Jacoby Brissett, and Mitchell Tinsley still came away with it. Come on now, we have guys like this fighting for the last spot on this 53-man roster in the receiving group. The last spot. Only problem with Mitchell Tinsley is he's a great receiver. Great receiver, but he doesn't bring you much special teams wise, and you know who does? Kazmir Allen, who's looking like our starting punt returner right now, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, the Commanders haven't said anything about it, but whenever we're doing special team stuff, he's getting most of the looks at punt return, just like he did against the Browns, and he looked really good doing it. And then even today, he had a crazy route. He killed the linebacker, got super open, shook him out of his shoes basically, but then he ended up dropping the catch wide open, which was a little disappointing. But bruh, the competition is crazy. I'm hearing about Byron Pringle constantly getting open, another ex-Chiefs guy that's been making plays, made a great play against the Browns as well. We didn't even mention him in that list of 5 receivers that are likely to make the team. And also, before we move on from the receiver group, I just like the fact that Terry McLaurin is loved. He's now that famous guy. He was up there with Ryan Clark and those guys on their podcast. I love their show. He's like out here finally 90-something overall in Madden. When he's coming out of the tunnel at Ravens training camp facility, Ravens fans and Commanders fans, of course, all of them, Ravens fans included, asking him to sign stuff after practice. I mean, he's a star now. I'm so proud of him. Also, moving on to the tight end group, today was probably John Bates' best practice, especially as a receiver today. I mean, boy, he killed it in 11-on-11s, had 3 catches, and that was just at a certain point. I'm not sure if he ended up finishing with more. He even had a really good contested catch from Sam Howell. If you want to see that, here it is. And man, the first thing I thought when I saw that clip was, where was even half of that catching ability in that Browns preseason game where you dropped that wide open pass for a touchdown that killed our drive? Because that was first down, but immediately after that, I mean, it was like a holding penalty to Andrew Wiley. We ended up like 2nd and long. Then it was like a sack, and it was just terrible. Like, come on, John Bates. You got to do better than that in the preseason game. But I'm just at the very least happy to see some improvement in practice. He had that drop in the preseason, and then in the second day of joint practices with the Ravens, he stepped up big time and was catching everything thrown towards him, including that clip we just saw. Now moving on to the offensive line, like I already briefly spoke about during the injury report part, Sadiq Charles technically was the starting left guard today, but then his calf started acting up, so they had to sit him, and then Chris Paul, of course, took over as your starting left guard. I mean, if anybody's surprised, let me know. Please let me know. But even after they sat him down team drill wise, he still participated in some individual work. He just didn't have any pads on, and again, he didn't participate in any further team stuff. But he wasn't so bad off that he couldn't at the very least do individual stuff. Again, is anybody surprised by this news? Which is again the argument for why I have Chris Paul as my starting left guard if I were the Commanders, because can you depend on Sadiq Charles to stay healthy an entire season? If not, why not go ahead and start Chris Paul now rather than later, so he can get all of these meaningful snaps at starting left guard now, rather than trying to plug him in some random week in the middle of the season and hoping that he catches up to the rest of the offensive line. Let's go ahead and start building that chemistry now, in my opinion. Also, it was really interesting, Charles Leno wasn't out there today. I don't know if it was a Veterans Day or if maybe just reporters didn't notice him. Maybe Cornelius Lucas was out there starting left tackle for him for a short period of time, and then Charles Leno came in later. But when reporters were paying attention, Charles Leno was not out there. It was Cornelius Lucas starting the left tackle for our starting offensive line. But overall today, the offensive line looked really good. They looked pretty good last practice yesterday against the Ravens, the first joint practice, and then I feel like also just going back to the Browns game, I felt like their performance was very underrated. I feel like they received a lot more hate than they deserved once I finally looked back at the all 22. Andrew Wiley looked pretty bad a couple of plays, but for the most part, especially like Samuel Cosmi and Chris Paul, they looked great. Nick Gates looked pretty good. Charles Leno looked pretty good outside of like a couple of snaps. Andrew Wiley was by far our worst offensive lineman. Even the sack this Sam Howell took that I was talking about earlier, right after the John Bates drop, that was more so on Sam Howell just not reading the play. Brian Robinson was wide open, should have been able to get that ball off sooner to where he wouldn't have taken a sack in the first place. So I'm not surprised that the offensive line is looking really good against this Ravens D line right now. They had a way better day today than they even had yesterday, and yesterday was pretty good, but today was really good. Also, Charles Leno said after the practice, quote, "I think we're meshing well today. The last couple of days have been really physical days. I feel like we ain't backing down from nobody. I just feel like we're still growing that bond together," unquote. And basically what he's saying is that we're definitely improved from where we were a couple of weeks ago, but we still have some ways to go. And so basically just don't worry, we're good. The offensive line is only getting better day by day, and I believe in that. I think the offensive line, of course, is my biggest worry by far for this team. Definitely the position group I'm worried about the most, but I feel like we may be blowing it out of proportion a little bit. I think this offensive line is going to be a little bit better, or at the very least a little less bad than what people think they'll be. And I think they'll at the very least be good enough for our offense to be as explosive as we want them to be. And I think we're already really good, if anything, dominant run blockers. You saw that against the Browns game. We never had problems run blocking at all, no matter if it was the first team, second team, whatever. We just got to worry about pass protection for Sam Howell a little bit. But then again, with his mobility, with Eric Bieniemy's ability to make adjustments, and the fact that he got like that third drive, he was like, all right, offensive line tripping a little bit, we're just going to get the ball out of Sam Howell's hands quicker. We're going to ask Sam Howell to roll out of the pocket like as a play design, not a in the pocket pressure come and move away. No, pre-snap, you're just going to go ahead and move out the pocket and just use your legs to make something happen and to deliver the ball to an open receiver. So Sam Howell's mobility and arm strength and the ability to make throws on the run, Eric Bieniemy's ability to call plays, adjust to whatever's going on with the offensive line and what the defense is giving them. I'm very optimistic of what this offense is going to do, even in spite of the slight lack of faith I have in the offensive line right now. I'm very optimistic, but we'll see. Also, at the end of the practice, very interesting, Morgan Moses and Charles Leno were breaking down some post-practice techniques. So after practice was completely over, those guys were just working on a couple of things. I thought that was really interesting. Morgan Moses with this former team, technically not his former team. Were Charles Leno and Morgan Moses on the same team at the same time, or was that like an immediate switch where they never were on the same team together on the Commanders? I don't know. I don't remember, but either way, you know, Morgan Moses going against his former team in joint practices had to be really interesting. I was really upset with him, you know, thinking that he can get involved in some of those fights and stuff and hitting our players. But other than that, cool guy, man. And then moving on to the defense, starting with the defensive line, they were so dominant today. When they wanted to be, the Ravens literally couldn't get nothing off. I mean, literally the first play of team drills today, like the first play where it was the Ravens versus the Commanders and multiple players on the field at the same time, not individual drills, not one-on-ones and things like that. Jonathan Allen completely obliterated a play. Deron Payne was in there as well, but boy, look what Jonathan Allen did on this play right here, man.
Getting to the fun stuff, looks like this might be some run drills here to see how this offensive line looks. And man, Washington was living in the backfield on that play.
I mean, come on, dog. That's why he received all-pro votes last year. I wouldn't be surprised if he makes it to the all-pro this year, because this secondary improvement is going to only help this defensive line be even more productive and put more stats up on the stat sheet and go crazy, man. I'm so excited. Then also moving on, defensive end Andre Jones, boy, big surprise right now in camp. Coming out of the draft, after we took him, I wasn't very optimistic about him. I saw a little bit of ceiling, so I was like, hey, man, this guy may have something to him, but so far what I've seen in college is not necessarily there. Saw him as potentially like our Shaka Tony replacement, just not as athletic, but boy, he's surprising. First of all, with Chase Young doing individuals, no teamwork, so we had like a rotation of starters. Andre Jones was one of them, and I think he got the first look with the starters. Like when the starting defensive line went out there at the very beginning, Andre Jones was opposite of Montez Sweat before we started to rotate in other guys like F.A. Obata, Casey Toohill, and all of those guys. So I just thought that was really cool, man, and people are noticing him. He said, quote, that the game is slowing down for him. When I don't think and I just go, I'm going to be a problem, unquote. I love that. I love the fact that he has that confidence. I'm telling you that when you start to make some plays against some good competition, that confidence starts to build, man. I'm telling you, Andre Jones has some confidence. He has some talent. He's starting to be a little bit more productive. He's starting to flash. And on top of that, he's also getting a lot of work on special teams. Do not be surprised if Andre Jones finds a way to fight for a roster spot, which is really difficult. Defensive line, wide receiver, and DB right now, it's insanely difficult to make a roster spot open for yourself on this right now. And this 2023 Commanders, boy, is extremely difficult. It's been difficult for defensive line for a few years now, but it may be even more difficult this year than ever before, even back in those Matt Ioannidis, Tim Settle days, because it's edge rusher and defensive tackle right now. So Andre Jones, man, you keep making plays like that, you're increasing your chances of making it. But boy, the competition is really thick right now. Also, Ron Rivera spoke on Andre Jones, and he said, quote, wow, he's a dynamic young man. His talent and his abilities did flash. He's a guy we have to pay attention to now, unquote. So that tells you that, yeah, we drafted Andre Jones. We saw some talent, but what he's doing in training camp and these joint practices against the Ravens have us keeping an eye on him even more than we expected. And now we have to really consider him for a real roster spot right now. He's definitely opened the eyes of the players, the coaches, everybody. And I love the fact that Andre Jones shouted out Ryan Kerrigan in his press conference. He said, quote, every day we'll be in meetings. He'll say, you can do this, you can do that. I like this, stay doing this. Even with drill, he pulls me to the side. He's a legend, so I've got to lock in on that and take advantage, unquote. So shouts out to Ryan Kerrigan for not only being a great player for the Redskins, Washington football team, Commanders, Burgundy and Gold, whatever, the entire time he was here. Mr. Never injured until the very end with a cheap shot, and then he could never get right after that. But great player his entire career. And then now, after leaving the NFL football field for a coaching job with the Commanders as an assistant defensive line coach under Jeff Zgonina, he may even be a better coach than he is a football player, which is just amazing, man. Shouts out to Ryan Kerrigan. I'm so thankful to have him around the program, man. That guy is a different type of guy. And then also, man, F.A. Obata has been balling out again. Andre Jones, F.A. Obata, Casey Toohill getting first team work. I don't know where James Smith-Williams was today. I didn't hear anything about him. F.A. Obata, based off of what I've seen in training camp practices, how good he looked against the Browns, one of our best defenders against the Browns. He may have worked his way up past James Smith-Williams on the depth chart, because at the very least, James Smith-Williams is a really good run stopper, edge setter. F.A. Obata is a way better pass rusher. And F.A. Obata, along with James Smith-Williams, both of those guys have the versatility to play defensive tackle and edge rusher, depending on the situation. If it's an obvious pass rushing down, maybe you move F.A. Obata to defensive tackle to get a little bit more pass rush up the middle. Either way, man, I wouldn't be surprised if F.A. Obata is above James Smith-Williams on the depth chart, just based on how much he's flashed lately. And then linebacker wise, I dug. I couldn't find anything on linebackers. So no real linebacker news today, which again, like I've said before in previous videos, when we don't have news about certain position groups, then you actually could take it as a somewhat positive sign. Maybe that's just me being optimistic and glass half full like I usually am, but I didn't hear about Jamin Davis out here missing tackles or being lost in coverage. Same thing with Cody Barton and stuff like that. So I'll take it as at the very least, a stalemate, but maybe even a win. Then moving on to the defensive backs, man. Whoo, boy, stop playing with Emmanuel Forbes. He had a great day today. Now, granted, he did a great job of locking down Odell Beckham Jr. yesterday. Today, Odell Beckham got him with a really good double move. And if anything, that may be one of the weaknesses to his game, which is usually the weakness to most cornerbacks' games. That's just a really difficult thing to deal with, double moves. And Odell Beckham Jr. got a really good double move on Emmanuel Forbes. But Emmanuel Forbes, with his elite speed, his ability to track the ball down and break up a ball without even turning his head, even though as a fan, as a coach, you prefer for Emmanuel Forbes to get his head turned around every time, but he still has this knack for, even if he doesn't get his head turned around, he's able to get his hand up. We'll see if that gets flagged in games, but at the same time, Lamar Jackson underthrew it, so it was also pretty good recovery from Emmanuel Forbes, but if anything, it was more so an underthrow from Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson throws it exactly how it's supposed to be. Emmanuel Forbes has no chance to recover on Odell Beckham Jr., so Odell got a really good win against Emmanuel Forbes, but then the rest of practice, Emmanuel Forbes was shutting everything down. I mean, well, first of all, here's the Odell Beckham Jr. play right now if you wanted to see that. And then again, like I said, after that, he was shutting everything down. Here's a couple of clips right here where he's just completely locking up everybody. That was the first one. Now look at him lock down Mark Andrews on a corner fade in the back of the end zone. And then he celebrated with like the straps, like locking them up thing too. I like that, man. I love the trash talking. I love the confidence and all that. And speaking of trash talking, my boy Bleeding Burgundy and Gold over there, make sure you subscribe to him on YouTube, follow him on Twitter, everything. He pointed out the fact that Forbes was talking a little bit more trash to Duvernay than most other receivers. Like, even if he wasn't covering Duvernay, he was talking trash to him. And my boy Bleeding Burgundy and Gold pointed out that he may have went back and watched that tape, because remember when he got in that fight yesterday, it may have been Duvernay who snuck up behind him. That had nothing to do with the fight at all. Had nothing to do with it. Snuck up behind him, grabbed him, and threw him down. That may have been Duvernay. Emmanuel Forbes probably saw that last night after watching the tape and was like, bet, I got something for you. And so I don't know if they ever like went against each other in one-on-ones or in team drills or anything like that, but Emmanuel Forbes made sure he talked his trash to Duvernay even if he wasn't covering him, which I love that, man. I'm starting to like this guy way more, because when we first drafted him, I mean, I loved his talent, but personality-wise, he seemed so humble. He didn't seem like he was going to talk that much trash. I'm starting to see some trash talking coming from him, and that's going to make me love you even more. Just the fact that Terry McLaurin has ascended to trash talking level is huge to me, because I'm my favorite players in history of football, like Chad Johnson's and stuff like that. My boy Marshawn Lynch. Of course, I'm biased. Same high school, same part of Atlanta, all of that. Cam Newton, Adam Pac-Man Jones, Westbrook, AI, Anthony Edwards. Like, those are the type of players I love to watch. I love the trash talk. Even Marcus Peters. So now that I'm starting to see some of that in Emmanuel Forbes, he's about to ascend to one of my favorite players on the team easily for that. Now moving on to Benjamin St. Juste. From today's practice, with him coming back fully healthy, I was just happy to see him healthy. But then the way he was locking stuff up out there today made me very optimistic about how great of a year he's about to have. He looks even better going into this regular season than he has in previous regular seasons. Remember, last year, he completely shut down A.J. Brown and did a pretty good job against Justin Jefferson. They should have gave him that pick six that would have literally won the game for us against the Vikings, but it is what it is. Justin Jefferson still had a good statistical day against him overall, but I feel like Benjamin St. Juste did a great job and did as great of a job as you could do against arguably the best receiver in all of football. And again, he shut down A.J. Brown, like completely shut him down. And if anything, back to my main point, he looks better going into this regular season than he did this time last year. I'm super excited. Now, he did get juked out of his socks by Zay Flowers in one-on-ones to start. And here's that clip if you wanted to see that.
All right, here's Zay Flowers. Wow, I mean, he just makes it look too easy.
But then he made up for it, because later on, going against Zay Flowers again, same one-on-one drills, he did a good job with staying with them and contributing to the pass being broken up. I wouldn't necessarily consider it a PBU because it looked like Zay Flowers dropped it a little bit, but either way, still great coverage and made up for it. Here you go. And then from there on out, he was just straight clamps. I mean, look at him locking people up in red zone drills right here. And then the Ravens on their own 23, another lockup, just making it look so easy and smooth. Here's the last clip from Benjamin St-Juste. I'm telling you, man, he's going to have a great year. He had a great day today. I'm expecting big things from Benjamin St-Juste 2023 and beyond. I'm telling you. And also, Kendall Fuller definitely had a better day than yesterday. Yesterday, he was getting cooked. Today, he made up for it. The same Zay Flowers that just killed Benjamin St-Juste, who I'm super hype about. Kendall Fuller in one-on-ones against him literally shut him down. It was one play, but he shut him down. Here's the clip.
Before we send a break here, you got to watch Zay Flowers and see if he can continue doing what he's been doing. Pretty good coverage there.
Bro, I'm telling you, this secondary is serious, bro. I'm telling you. And then you got Cameron Curl out here locking up Mark Andrews. Now, Mark Andrews, I don't know. I mean, maybe you could say he won the matchup yesterday, even though Cam Curl has some good pass breakups and defensive snaps against Mark Andrews yesterday. But Mark Andrews was able to still catch a couple on him. Again, good offense beats great defense. There's nothing you can do. But today, completely locked down Mark Andrews. Completely locked him down, like this play, for example. I'm telling you, man, like I said, today was DBU, PBU, Pass Breakup University, my boy. Danny Johnson and Tariq Castro-Fields even had some really good pass breakups. Here's the Tariq Castro-Fields one. And this one is hilarious because the broadcast booth from the Ravens, this is the Ravens reporters and stuff like that, their live stream, they're sitting here laughing and joking, ha ha, we're having fun. Tariq Castro-Fields shut that receiver down so bad, they literally got quiet. They like didn't even know what to say. Like, golly, man, we looking bad out here type of silence. Here you go.
Time.
You mentioned player off day for Mark Andrews. He doesn't even take a player play off.
So, of course, like I've been saying, don't sleep on wide receiver depth. Don't sleep on the defensive line depth, but don't sleep on the defensive back depth either, bro. Because this depth on here is like the competitive nature of it right now and how everybody's fighting for the last couple of spots. We already know who some of the locks are, but those last couple of spots for the defensive line, the wide receivers, and the DBs, some really heavy competition right now. Do not sleep on that DB group. Some of those guys fighting for those last two spots are really good, just like the end of the wide receiver room right now in the 90-man roster. And then, of course, before we move on, Zay Flowers, you're going to definitely see some clips of having some great moments today. Overall, our DB group was great, but Zay Flowers is just one of those guys. So yesterday, Zay Flowers and Mark Andrews both had great days. And then today, Zay Flowers really alone had a great day. Well, pretty good day. Again, the DB group did a great job against them, but Zay Flowers just looks like he's going to be a phenomenal receiver at the NFL level. So I just wanted to make sure I included that, and shouts out to the Ravens and their fans because y'all got a special one in him. Even though we figured out how to lock up Mark Andrews today and pretty much make him ineffective, Zay Flowers still found a way to do his thing. It was like a back and forth between Zay Flowers and whatever DBs were covering him. And then also moving on, special teams wise, Ron Rivera was asked about how they feel about Cameron Cheeseman right now, because right now he's been having some pretty bad snaps at long snapper. Apparently he's trying some new technique or something, and Ron Rivera said that, you know, there is some sort of an end timeline. They're trying to give him his space. They're trying to give him some time because it is a new technique that he's working on, which I'm confused about because Y-Fix was not broken. I thought he was pretty solid and consistent last year. I felt like that was something we didn't have to worry about. So I'm not understanding that, but apparently he's trying something new. Ron Rivera and company understand that, so they're trying to give him a little bit of breathing room. But there's definitely a deadline for, like, we need to have this fixed because we're about to be playing in the regular season in less than 30 days. As you can see in the countdown of my thumbnail of the video that you're literally watching, and all of my thumbnails that I do for all of my videos, we're getting closer and closer to that week 1 game against the Arizona Cardinals, less than 30 days away. And then lastly, before we move on, a few random things. First of all, I don't know if you've seen Robert Saleh's speech of the new head coach of the New York Jets. Well, I think this is his second year now, from the joint practices with the Ravens when he was on Hard Knocks. That's where the footage came from. He was basically talking about how the offense, this is y'all time to, like, y'all are gonna be the catalyst for people taking us seriously through the media or in the football field, whatever. The offense has to be the one. We already know the defense is really talented and great. It's up to the offense to step up and take us to another level. And I just felt like that was a really interesting parallel to what the Commanders have going on right now. Everybody knows we have a dominant defense, and if anything, the defense may even be better. And everybody's talking, Mina Combs and people from NFL Network, ESPN, pretty much everybody unanimously agrees that the Commanders defense is going to be like top 5, at the very least top 10 this year. The offense is what everybody's doubting. So I hope that Robert Saleh message also gets to the Commanders through Eric Bieniemy, Ron Rivera, whoever it takes, Terry McLaurin even, that it's up to y'all for us to start winning these games. The defense has been doing their part. It's time for the offense to step up. Also, before we move on, the Washington Commanders now officially have their first corporate sponsor in the Josh Harris era, which is Verizon. I mean, we got a new owner, and within just a few weeks, we already have a new big sponsor, which is really cool. The first corporate sponsor to sign with the Commanders since the franchise was sold to Josh Harris. I'm really excited about that. Of course, everybody's doing articles on it, so I may do a separate video discussing that and breaking down everything, all of the details for that, but I'm not going to take the time to talk about that for 10-20 minutes in this video, but I just wanted to briefly mention that. Again, I may do a separate video on it, but who knows. But the Commanders even put out a nice clip and a whole announcement video. It's 20 seconds long about us getting the new sponsor and stuff like that. I may include that in the video where I specifically talk about that, so stay tuned for that if I end up doing that video. And I'm pretty sure this is the first of many sponsorships, for sure. I mean, you can already see the change that Josh Harris has had on this team, just as far as optimism for the players, fans, coaches, but also off the field wise. You have Maryland, DC, and Virginia fighting for us to put our new stadium in either of those places. At first, Dan Snyder couldn't get anybody to want him to build a new stadium in their state or city. Now we have states and cities fighting for us. It's the complete opposite. So that's really interesting again. So if anything, I'm expecting even more sponsorships down the line. And I'm really interested too, because the next stadium is hopefully going to be a retractable dome roof something. So is this going to be the Verizon Dome, the Verizon Center or something like that? I'm really curious about that. I'm telling you, man, the Commanders starting to smell like new money, man. You feel me? Yes, sir. You can't have no fun without no money, you dig? Starting to look like professionals around here. But also, before we get up out of here, shouts out my boy Serge, the shooter. I'm gonna leave you with this last clip, this last tweet that he tweeted out that I thought was funny.
Bang, 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 bang. Hey.
But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff arm that like button, stiff arm that subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time and immediately I release these informative and opinionated videos, these training camp breakdowns, the clips from the practices that I upload for y'all to see so you can see everything that's going on in practice. Breaking news like us getting the Verizon sponsorship or injury updates, everything. I'm still working on the rookie film sessions, live streams for the preseason games, previews and reviews before and after the games in video form for y'all, and call in live streams that I'm gonna definitely start doing once the regular season starts, when I'm live streaming all of those games. So man, make sure y'all stay tuned with all of the content, infinite content. Also, of course, let me know in the comment section. Again, I'm trying my best to try to read and reply to every comment. I'm really working on it. You've been seeing I've been coming out with 4 or 5 videos a day, so I'm really trying to get to them. Just be patient with me. So let me know in the comment section how you feel about everything discussed in this video. Do you agree or disagree with any of the points? Did this practice, or these joint practices in period, the last 2 days, make you more optimistic about the team like it did for me? Let me know that. And of course, man, shouts out to all of the supporters, man. Shouts out to all of my sponsors, especially my Pro Bowl sponsors. Your name you see scrolling on the screen right now, man. I really appreciate y'all. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.